Today we are dealing with mixed number coefficients and negative coefficients. Coefficients, of course, is that term that refers to that number in front of a variable. So as we deal with this, we want to understand how to balance a problem so that we can solve to get our x alone. Now our first example is something we've done before, and as we work through this we want to understand that, or be reminded that, if I want to get rid of this 4/5 from this side and I want to balance it to the other side so that x is alone, I'm going to take my 4/5, which is being multiplied by the x, and I'm going to divide by 4/5. So 4/5 divided by 4/5. Now instantly, because of your great math knowledge, you're saying, if I divide by a fraction, I'm not really dividing by a fraction, but instead I am multiplying by its reciprocal. And so as we look at this, to get rid of this from this side, I'm going to multiply by its reciprocal. So 5/4 times 4/5 is going to equal 1x. So if I do it to this side, then I also have to do it to this side. That's what makes it balanced. And so I'm going to take this and say that x equals 7 times 5/5, so 7 times 5, which equals 35. And denominator times denominator puts a 4 on the bottom. So 35/4, which could then be reduced to x equals 5. That's not right. 8. Let's go with 8. That would make way more sense. 8, because 4 times 8 is 32, and we're left with a 3/4. And so we've solved for that x. Today we want to take the next step further and throw in a mixed number. And just like when we multiplied and divided mixed numbers before, our first step needs to be taking this, our coefficient that's a mixed number, and turning it into an improper fraction. So 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10, and so my problem really says 10, talking too fast, 10/3 times x equals 5. Now, of course, to solve this problem, I'm going to divide by 10/3 or multiply by its reciprocal. The reciprocal of 10/3 is 3/10, and so I've done that to one side. I'm also going to do the same to the other side. And so I'm going to come away with this for my balancing act. My x is now left alone because this is going to become 1, and then 5 times 3 gives me 15/10, which then of course can be reduced to 1 1/2. If you don't understand that, 10 goes into 15 one time, which leaves you with 1 5/10, and 5/10 of course can be reduced to 1/2. Let's move on and try another problem together. Here we have two mixed numbers, and because we have two mixed numbers, once again we're going to go ahead and turn them both into improper fractions. And so our new problem becomes 5/2 y, and y is just a variable. The letter doesn't really matter. And then of course we have 15/8. Now that we have them in improper fraction form, we can solve this problem. To get rid of our 5/2, we would have to divide by itself, but to divide by a fraction means multiply by its reciprocal. And so we're going to balance that out on both sides of the problem. And in the end, these are going to equal 1, so we're left with 1y, or just y. And then 15 times 2 is 30, and 8 times 5 is 40, which of course our y then can be reduced to 3/4. We've been cruising along with this process really well. What happens when a negative number comes into play? Our negative really doesn't need to scare us, but instead we just need to think about what a reciprocal really is going to do. Since we need to now divide by -2/3, we want to say, okay, to divide by a negative coefficient is multiplying by still a negative reciprocal. And we want to keep it negative because the idea is to make it equal to a positive 1. And because a negative times a negative is going to yield a positive, we're left with an answer of 1. But that's going to definitely change what's happening on this side, because we're not just bringing over a 3/2, but we're bringing a negative 3/2 over to this side of the problem. Because of that, we've reduced this, and so we're left with a y. But now we're taking 4 times a negative 3, which gives us negative 12. And because we took this negative and put it with the 3 here, we're not going to take it with the 2. So we're going to take 5 times 2 and get an answer of 10. Right? So this negative number here can only go with 1, either the top or the bottom. It really doesn't matter, because in the end, it's going to leave us with at least one negative, which makes our y a negative number. To reduce this, then, we're going to take this and say y equals negative 1 and 1/5. And so that's reducing it down to lowest terms, because 10 can go into 12 one time, 1 and 2/10, and 2/10, of course, can be reduced to 1 and 1/5. And so we have this negative, and that negative comes with this problem. All right, it's your turn. Go ahead and solve this problem now, using all the steps that you know as you deal with numbers and coefficients. That's it for lesson 90.